Jerry Mitchell, an investigative reporter for Jackson's Clarion-Ledger, has since 1989 dedicated his efforts to reporting on unpunished murders of the civil rights era. Jerry quotes a colleague in characterizing his philosophy of reporting: "I just catch them, I don't fry them." This may be so, but it is a fact that Jerry's dogged and meticulous research and reporting led to convictions in several cold cases from the 60s, including that of Byron de la Beckwith, Medgar Evers's killer, and Edgar Ray Killen for his role in the murder of civil rights workers Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner. Mitchell's determination to pursue the truth and let the truth lead where it may has earned him national renown and numerous awards. To name just a couple, in 2005, he became the youngest recipient to date of Columbia University's John Chancellor Award for Excellence in Journalism. Jerry has also received a George Polk Award for Justice Reporting and a MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant. Please welcome Jerry Mitchell and Rick Bragg to the Mississippi Book Festival.
Yeah, you just thought you were in for some easy questioning, Rick.
Genius grant.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds really good until you leave the door open, and then they go, "Hey, genius, you left the door open," So it's great to be here with everybody, and especially being packed in here like sardines with none other than Theodore Bilbo. So anyway. But anyway, it's fun. I did a little research on your name, Rick. I don't know why I'd never done that before, but I found out that in Nordic, that your name means ice cream, or actually ice, but anyway, close enough, right?
Ice sounds a whole lot more manly.
Yeah, it does.
There's old peach ice cream coming down the road.
Exactly. There you go.
Well, we got one of my relatives did one of those
genealogy. What did you find out?
Found out pretty much what we thought: French Huguenot and some hard-bitten, angry Irish, and
I got some of that.
Some Brits, but a lot of Viking blood.
Yeah.
Which we thought was hilarious. And a surprise, a little bit of Middle Eastern, which we were.
Did y'all do that DNA thing?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. And I was just scared to death that it was going to show that everything I'd written in my books for 25 years was all wrong. And she said, you ought to do it. And I said,
who said that? Your mama?
No, it was my niece Meredith. She said, you ought to do that. And I said, do you really think I want law enforcement in the county, state, country, and world to have my DNA?
Yeah.
I mean, I have not lived a careful life.
The questioning has just begun, Rick. No. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'm bad about that. I'm sorry.
Get a little closer, Rick. Come on, Ricky.
I got me a new belt buckle, and it's keeping me from the back.
Yep.
Y'all help yourself.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Rick and I have known each other for years. That some of the most special times for us has been just sitting around talking with your mama, and your mama making something, and her going, "Ricky," it was pretty cool.
I was named for. I'm the only man in North Alabama named for a Cuban band leader.
Yeah. Ricky Ricardo.
Ricky. And when I tried to explain to her that it's Desi.
It was Desi. That's right, Desi.
I could have been Desi. but she and my people are just like this, bless their hearts. Lucy was Lucy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Lucy didn't have some like name you had to figure out. Lucy was Lucy. So Ricky had to be Ricky. So, Ricky Ricardo's a real person. Desi Arnaz is just something else. And yeah, I was named for she.
How about that?
Yeah, I guess there's, look, Ricky was bad. Ricky and them, those, what do you call it when they make your shoulders look big? I don't have to have that.
Shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads, suits, and them big leg pants, and that big conga drum. Ricky was bad, So I wasn't, I thought that was just as good as, I got other kinfolks named after like squirrels and such.
Those manly names. Huh?
I just wanted it to be a strong,
Strong name.
Yeah. Bilbo'd have been a good name. Bilbo Bragg.
You missed a life in politics, Rick.
No, you can't run for anything if every time somebody says, hey, your cousin told me a story once, and you begin to sweat and so you can't run for, you ever parked your Ford Bronco out in front of the Gamecock Motel at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon? You will never run for Senator.
Sounds like a safe bet.
Yeah. Our buddy Doug Jones is doing fine.
Yeah.
Doing fine.
Yeah. He is. Doug's up in D.C. now, and
we went from me not returning his phone calls to him not returning mine.
Like that. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yes, ma'am. Hush. It ain't my fault that you never missed a Kiss concert when you were young. We were listening to quality music. Me and Boo were listening to the Allman Brothers, and we were listening to Leonard Skinner, and they didn't have to crank that up real loud. It's you people that painted your faces and went running off smoking that marijuana. I'll try to lean in a little bit more. We pretty much have just completely blown your list.
Yeah, I know. I just threw it away while we were talking. Yeah, I guess you wrote a book, huh? Maybe we'll talk about that. Huh?
Okay. Yeah, we
So what made you decide to do this book, Rick? You've written about your mama, and you've written about your granddaddy, and you wrote about your daddy, and now you wrote tried to write about your mama again, but you stuck food in there too. So anyway.
Yeah, it's all basically a ploy by the publishing machine in New York City to just keep picking the pockets of readers as long as we can. No,
what made you seriously?
Well,
what made you decide to do the book?
We had a contract for a novel that we've had for years and years and years.
You haven't written that one.
No, I know I should have, but the fact is that.
I like your nonfiction books.
Well, I appreciate that, Jerry.
Yeah.
If you were disappointed in me, you would tell me.
I would.
All right. But the only person on earth I would actually ever calls me up and says, Rick, I'm doing a story on you, and I'll say, I did it. I did it. I confess. What happened on?
Well, what made you decide to write about food and
well, I didn't
recipes? Or tell me the evolution of it.
I've never really talked about it to a group this large before, and that's the truth. And I've done book signings since we went on a 60-city swing. So I went everywhere. But two things happened. Mom got sick, and she had colon cancer, but she survived the surgery, and she survived 2 years of chemo. and she's in her 80s, but she got sick, and then I got sick. I have, and I don't talk much about this publicly because I don't want it to become the narrative. You know what I mean? But so I guess it's my way of telling a room full of however many people we got jammed in here to don't tell nobody. But I have non-Hodgkin's, and which is if you're gonna have cancer, that's the one you want to have. It's treatable and survivable. It ain't friendly and happy. It makes your hands shake and makes your hair fall out and makes you just generally grumpy. Something you ought to bear in mind. But she and I were both sick, and so I moved back to the farm.
Yeah.
And I started. I was already lifting sacks of feed and fertilizer, and we got real livestock. So
How are they doing?
They're getting a little old.
Yeah.
So one day, while Mama was in the hospital, I went home, and my belief is that you can write a book with one story. If you get one good, illustrative story, you can write a book.
Right.
It'll grow from that. And when I walk into my mother's kitchen, it smells like pinto beans and ham. And I don't mean pinto beans with a little cube of ham.
No.
I mean pinto beans and shavings of skin and pork fat and the bone. So you're getting that just rich flavor, not just from the bone and the joint and that gristle and all that, but you're also getting it from what some people call the leavings or the scraps.
Right.
You put those in there. Anybody that throws out a piece of ham skin has got something terribly wrong with them, right? Right? I mean, or it smells like bacon cornbread. I mean, you've had my mama's biscuits, and
They're great.
or it smells like biscuits, or it smells like that nice, beautiful scent of fresh cantaloupe. When you cut a fresh cantaloupe. Of course, we don't eat cantaloupe unless some people eat cantaloupe with like chicken salad. We eat cantaloupe with sausage gravy and biscuits. And so
It's good Southern.
yeah,
Okay.
and it smelled like those things.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, I had to go take Mom some clothes to the hospital, and I walked through the room, and it just smelled like lemon-scented dishwashing detergent and cold iron. An old iron skillet that you have not used in a long time. Doesn't smell bad, it smells good, but it smells like what it is, old iron. And, I mean, it's a clean scent too, but it's just wrong. And I knew then, I asked her, I said, how'd you feel about me doing a book on, your cooking? She thought that it was going, and she didn't like that idea very much because she said, no, no. And she said, what would you even call a book like that? And I said, we will call it The Best Cook in the World. And she just shook her head and snorted. And, mamas have a snort, And she said, apparently you were all at the Kiss concert in 1977. And she snorted and said, I wasn't even the best cook that lived on our road. And said, my mama was a fine cook, and my sister Edna, my Aunt Edna, was a great country cook. And I said, well, that may all be true, but calling it the third best cook on the Roy Webb Road
Didn't quite have the ring to it.
does not sing, right? It doesn't sing. So talked her into it. I think like every book we've ever done, Shouting, she didn't understand what the point was or why it would be important to anyone. Everybody lived with a baby on their hip, standing in line for commodity cheese. And everybody dragged a cotton sack with a toddler on it. Everybody worked what we called in town. That meant you took in laundry and scrubbed the floors of the rich ladies in town. Everybody did that. So, she didn't see the point in it. She absolutely loved the idea of the book on her daddy, but it made her sad.
Right.
And she did not like the idea of the book on Daddy, which I did because I did shout, and I had to give him his say. Right. There are some things when you get to be knocking on 60, not that that's not a spring chicken, but because I know you celebrated your 60th birthday several decades ago.
Exactly.
But there's some things when you start knocking on 60 that you start, you don't want to leave unsaid.
Yep.
And if you write books for a living, it doesn't count unless it's tween hardcover. Yeah. So I had to give my daddy his say in a book. And, and sometimes I did books because they were like Jerry Lee. I got a phone call from New York, and they said, you got any interest in doing a book on that Jerry Lee Lewis? And I thought, God, yeah. I mean, how could that be dull?
Exactly.
Because the thing...
And it wasn't, was it?
It wasn't dull. Yeah. When he showed me that 357 Magnum and allowed me to think, is that the one he shot his bass player with? But the thing that happened with every book I've ever done, and even the ones... Every book I've ever done, the first question was not, will this contribute to the Southern experience?
Right.
Will little men in seersucker and bow ties discuss it at the Faulkner Festival at Ole Miss? I have found that most discussion of those books, the authors have been dead 114 years. And the other ones they discussed made $3.27. I don't live in that world. My books have to be a commercial success because I do this for a living and buy my people houses.
Right.
So they have to work. But the one thing before doing them I always ask myself is, and I think it's the same thing you did when you picked your career, is this going to be dull?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this going to be dull? In my newspaper life, I got shot at and scared to death, hit in the head with a chunk of concrete and tear gassed in 3 countries. But not one time do I ever remember spending a whole week dull.
Yeah, this isn't boring.
Dull. Yeah. And like when Byron D. LeBeckwith made you that bologna sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
And you had to decide whether to eat it or not on the way home.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that ain't dull.
Yeah, I know. You said you would have eaten it. That's
I'd have eaten it because of this reason here. One, by the time we're very different. You can get people to tell you anything, and you promise them nothing. You promise them. You don't say, yeah, thank you for telling me that. I'll come see you in prison. By the time I was through with Byron D. LeBeckwith, he'd be introducing me to his nieces. He'd hear my accent, not that phony Texas thing you got.
I know.
He'd hear my accent, Byron D. LeBeckwith. He would have been making me bologna sandwiches for days. Bologna sandwiches, nothing. I'd have had pinto beans and ham and fried okra, but no, I said I would have eaten it. I'd eaten it there, so that he would have had to drag my body. I'm 6. So I am 6'2".
That's a big body.
and I'm 6'2" and 230. Byron D. LeBeckwith was already old.
Yeah.
Dragging my body out of his house and disposing of it in that hard ground of Signal Mountain, Tennessee, would have been damn near impossible. Your scrawny ass, he could have dragged you out.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
I
right.
mean, you could tote him out, and that'd be the last anybody ever saw of Jerry Miller. Dump him in one of them food trucks and smack it on the butt, and nobody'd ever see Jerry again. Anyway, well, we've really blown this thing.
We're having too much fun.
Yeah. But my point was, and I had a point when I started talking about this, is the reason that I've done so many nonfiction books is because I had it.
Yeah.
I had it to write. My people were not country club folks, and those of you who are country club folks, y'all are people too. We never belonged to a fraternity or a sorority, and if you belong to a fraternity, well, no, I got nothing to say about you, because I know what happens when they open the doors of the Deke House there at Alabama, and you just want to just try not to run over one of them when they come out. And but I had a woman ask me once. She said, "I grew up, upper middle class. What in the world am I going to write about?" And I said, "Well, novels.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Go spend some time with some poor folks. Really, they'll give them some money and they'll let you move in with them, and watch their lives, watch the gymnastics that they have to go through to live."
But I think that's so true about story, though, Rick. That's what we're talking about is struggle.
Struggle.
You want to write about struggle and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. I think of your books, The Glass Castle, those kinds of books, what makes them great is those kind of stories.
Well,
Story of your mama, and persevering and your granddaddy and those kind of stories. They're great stories.
You're not about to get me indicted, are you?
Not that I know of.
All right. Thank you. I think that there was something to, when Faulkner wrote about us, we were, I know I'm in the cradle of Faulkner, but, we were stereotypes, and even one of the great books of my life, To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee, and that was a poem for our age. That was a moral.
Yep.
That was a sermon. That was kind of a Wesleyan sermon.
Yep.
Of not judging another human being until you walked in their shoes, and as our buddy Wayne Flint called it. And but even her, in that great book, could not resist reducing the white trash to stereotype,
Right.
and having the heroes be the landed, frayed gentry.
Right.
The heroes were all landed, frayed gentry. Is our family rich, Atticus? Well,
Right.
no, but
Right.
And we all know that in the South, and with all due respect, nothing happens evil unless it happens trailer by trailer or little frame house by frame house.
Right.
Nothing happens on a larger scale in the Deep South that it does not have the approval of a ruling class. The South is a feudal system, and nothing happened. Look at, I'm sorry, but were there that many garbage men serving on the White Citizens Council?
No.
So
Bankers.
yeah, bankers and doctors and lawyers and so
judges
and maybe a politician or two.
Yeah.
Or sick. By the way, it is so nice. In Louisiana, they make me do this inside the House chamber, And every year I make the joke that it's nice to be the only guy that's ever sat here that hadn't been indicted. And they stopped laughing about that many years ago, but I keep telling it because it's still true. But
Truth hurts.
But no, when you're gone from this planet, and I'm not going to be real philosophical about this, but when you are gone, I would just as soon somebody say, well, he might not have been worth a shit, but he didn't. At least he didn't carry on the cliche.
Right.
And I'm not going to protect my people. If people ask me a question about politics in a crowd like this, I answer it.
Right.
And I have had a great many members of the Tea Party get up and walk out. Because I like to think I'm a progressive Southerner, but I'm not gonna just back up the cliche. And some of the best people I've ever known in my life were lint heads who worked at the cotton mill, and pulpwooders, and coal miners, and maids. And their colors varied, but their struggle
Exactly.
made them, I think, and this is terrible, but I think it made them better. Better for me to write about. Y'all know what I mean.
Do you know what?
This is the backup singer.
Yeah, backup singer. I just took my mom and dad yesterday to the Civil Rights Museum. They hadn't been through it. I don't know if you gotten to go through it.
I have, yeah.
And so you saw the last quote that you see when you're walking out of the Civil Rights Museum is a woman you wrote about, Miss McCarthy. So I just thought of you when I was walking out. I was like, oh my goodness. And of course, that had. Did everybody read Rick's story on Osceola McCarthy?
Well, hell no, they didn't all read it.
Yeah, they should have. If you hadn't, go online and read it. It's what a terrific story. And the detail I still remember to this day from that story is she had her Bible taped up to keep Corinthians from falling out. And but she was the one she was a washerwoman, and she saved money her whole life and gave, what was it, $140,000?
Yeah, 140, 150, something like that.
$150,000 to Southern Miss so that students that weren't fortunate could go to school. And what a life. But those are the kind of people you write about, which is great.
I think the quote was, so the children won't have to work as hard as I did.
Exactly.
But she, people ask me about that line about to keep Corinthians from, to keep Corinthians from falling out, and they always say, why that?
I like that.
And her entire Bible was taped, and
so you could have picked any of them.
And it was like, the pages were like that,
Right.
and so I could have picked Genesis. But one of the things you have to do in this craft is because being the good writer you are, that you have to avoid dull. Again,
Exactly.
You have to avoid dull. So what and how do you avoid dull? Well, what sounds good?
Exactly.
What sounds good? I could have used Genesis, but instead, I thought, let me think a minute. And Corinthians sounds good, but I really did it because I didn't know how to spell Deuteronomy. True story.
Good choice.
Yeah. And that was back in the day.
Yeah.
That was back before either one of us had quite as much gray, and you couldn't just hit a button. You actually had to know stuff.
Yeah.
So that was back in the had to know stuff era.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
God help me, I'm just about gone, ain't I?
Yeah, you are.
I'm just about gone.
Well, I'll ask you one more food question, and we'll turn it over to the audience.
Okay.
So if you were on a desert island and, what food could you not do without? You're on a desert island. There's got to be one food you have. What is that, Rick?
Anything served on a boat.
A wise choice. Very good choice. So you get it to go, right?
I wouldn't give a damn if it was a Milo burger, boo. As long as it was, that's a good question. And the funny thing, though, is that it changes. You know what I mean? You know how what's the prettiest thing you've ever saw? Well, maybe you saw that the day before. Y'all know what I mean. So it changes. I think it would be our Thanksgiving meal, and what that is and a lot of y'all would say that, but for us it's a mix of old food. Right. So it starts with the big pinto beans are like our banquet bean. Y'all know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we would have a big.
My dad's family too.
Yeah. We'd have a big pot of pinto beans, and there would not be cornbread to go with it. There would be instead a big old beautiful golden pan of chicken and dressing. Yeah. And it wouldn't really be chicken and dressing, it would just be Momma would not use the turkey. Right. She would boil 2 big fat hens. Mm-hmm. So you'd have a big pan of dressing. We don't put the dressing in the bird. Some people call that stuffing. When I told my Aunt Juanita and my mother that some people stuffed the bird full of, like, their dressing, they said, well, how do they get it in there? And when I explained it to both of them, both being Congregational Holiness, they were scandalized and said, you mean they put their hand in there? And they do too, because they put like a pound of butter inside that bird, And they'll put some aromatics in there and maybe even some lemons, but not usually. Usually it's our seasonings, our poultry seasoning, salt and pepper, a little cooking oil, butter. And you're good to go. But turkey, of course, I like the drumstick and I like the fatty part of the wing. Yeah. The end of the wing. And that is served with mashed potatoes with a little puddle of butter sitting on top. Mashed potatoes, creamed onions, which are, they're not fried, they're creamed. But there's no milk either. They're just slow cooked until they make their own sugar, make their own cream, and you add water. Start with bacon grease, thick sliced onions, and you cook them until they turn to this beautiful nectar. And you use that like a relish. And a can of cranberry sauce that you have to shake out of the can.
Yeah. I like to watch it come out of the can, yeah.
We used to gather around. And it just ain't the holidays until you hear.
That's right.
So, anyway, we probably don't have time for any questions, but we'll go ahead.
Is someone going to feel determined, or we'll just let them yell out? Y'all have a mic for them, or how are we doing this? Nope, they just got to yell out.
We can hear.
Yell out. We'll stand up and yell out. What's that?
The question.
Yeah, you saw what you just mentioned about the baked possum. This is a possum story from Rick's book. Go ahead.
The curative powers in particular. I'd like to point out that I have this damn microphone so close that it is actually poking a hole in my stomach. No, I got it.
Turn it around so that it's not poking you. I'm trying to help you.
No, you're not. No. Look, there were some things in there that we didn't, I knew probably would not be tried. you know. Like beef short ribs, potatoes, and onions, if you don't try that, there's something wrong with you. And if you don't save the detritus, if you don't save the leavings from that beef short ribs, potatoes, and onions, and make vegetable soup, use it as a starter for vegetable soup with home canned, tomato juice, home canned tomatoes, some green beans, lima beans, corn. You can use okra if you like. But we're talking about a winter soup. You know what I mean? We're talking about a winter soup. But possum, look, I knew that people were not going to probably go out and get themselves a pot big enough, like the ones they used to try to cook Tarzan in, and y'all remember those? And I know that you're not going to go get you a big pot and make cracklings. Now, some of you do make cracklings, but, cracklings will set the house on fire, But possum, I know that, first of all, to eat a possum, let me just give you the quick recipe. Catch possum.
Can you hit them?
No. You got to get it live. And you put it in a cage and you feed it clean things. Clean things. You feed it clean vegetables. And you feed it milk. Feed it a lot of milk. Get him so fat he can barely move. Right? Then somebody has to do the possum in. I'm not going to get into how that occurs, but somebody has to do the possum in, and then you skin it, and you do all the other terrible things you have to do to any marsupial to eat it. It is a marsupial. It is not a rodent. It is a member of the kangaroo family. And and then you take it in the house. And you boil the mortal hell out of it. This is probably the most cussing on any panel you have ever been involved with.
Yep.
Well, since we've already got the record, I'll clean my language up now. But Jerry is my conscience. You know how some people have that little angel that lights on his shoulder and he's got the devil on the other one? Jerry has always been my conscience, and I appreciate it. So you do, so you got your skint, gutted possum. And make sure you take the tail off because it is not attractive. And take the head off because nor is it attractive. And the clawed feet, for they are not attractive either. And then you take the possum and you get a big roasting pan and a clean pine board. And you set that board, think cedar plank salmon. Put that clean board in that.
Somehow those two things just don't seem...
Well, that's because you've gotten prosperous and am now a snob.
Exactly.
And you're probably putting on airs because your sweet mother is here.
I am.
So then, do you want to hear this or not?
Go.
So then you take the boiled possum out of the water after it's boiled 1 hour. Then you put it on that board. You rub that board with some good cooking oil first. Plop the possum on the board. Surround it with sweet potatoes, right? Then cover it with the roasting pan cover. Put it in the oven. Bake it for 2 hours at 350. Until that possum fat. Possum has the most healthy oil.
Really?
Yes.
It
is. It has almost no cholesterol. No, it's true. And then, this is how you serve it. You pick it up and you carry it to the back door, and in a quick twisting motion, fling it all out into the yard. Go retrieve the board and eat that.
That's pretty good. You could have your own show, Rick. Cooking tips with Rick.
No, because all them cooking channel people, they got to have weird hair. And I had weird hair in 1977. I looked like Bobby Sherman. Remember him? I had one. I didn't have a shag or a mullet, but it was a little bit long. I was voted prettiest hair of everybody.
So you beat up the women too.
Yeah, and now it's just now I have weird hair just because I wake up and walk outside.
I think we got some more questions.
Yes,
Go ahead, stand up.
Rick, one of my favorite stories of yours is about your mother in the kitchen and milk carton, the empty milk carton. Every time I step on one of those, I think about it and start laughing about your mama. But if you have time, I think it would be fun to hear that.
Is that where she fell down? Is that?
I think she had to call you for help. For what you had about
Oh yeah, she was. My mother thinks that you're supposed to stomp everything. I mean, she thinks that, nothing. And the garbage man comes and picks. We are very sophisticated in Calhoun County. We have a garbage can at the end of our country road, and the driveway is a quarter mile long. So but in the old days, you went in the backyard and you burned your trash. And what would not burn, you borrowed your Uncle Ed's front end loader and you dug a big hole and you made a tiny landfill in your backyard and you smoothed it over, and then you went to burning again, and you burned in a 55-gallon drum. And a prized possession was a 55-gallon drum. And something, but that was before a lot of plastics. Now plastics have ruined everything. But my mom thinks you're supposed to crush everything. You're supposed to crush everything. And I'll tell it from my sister-in-law's perspective. She called me up and she said, "Did your mama call you?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah." She was trying to stomp a milk carton, and now 81, trying to stomp a milk carton and got it stuck on her foot. Now, most people, that would have been the end of that story. You know what I mean? You would have sat down, you would have limped to a place to sit down and pulled the milk carton off your foot and then proceeded with life, right? Oh, no. She had to dance around the front yard trying to kick it off at her age. It was shameful. But But see, she doesn't. You reach an age, and I can guarantee you have not reached that age yet, where you get to tell your mother, and pardon me, but where you get to say to your mother, "Well, hell, Mom, that's just crazy." And you think she forgets that, but she does not. How about that fella back there? Yes, sir.
What's your favorite movie and what keeps you up at night?
Maybe both. I don't know.
Well, let's see. I'm 59. The honest truth is, in my reporting life, I really did cover some bad things, like Jerry. And I did a lot of work overseas, and so I still have a nightmare occasionally about, running through a crowd, with people who, do not like you being there. And on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, I had an interpreter named Wasim, and Wasim would run with me. And I told him, I said, "You have two jobs: interpret and help if you can and not getting me killed. And he would run beside me, and he would, as we would run through tear gas, we would run, and he would lean into my ear and go, "Whoa, this is problematic."
That was comforting.
Somebody waving an AK-47 over their head, some 13-year-old boy or a bunch of, the swords are the thing that really bothered the mortal hell out of me. There's just, of all the ways to go in life, a country boy from Alabama does not want to go by the sword. That is far too biblical. But sometimes I don't dream about monsters, and I don't think about that. I do think a lot of times of close calls, especially if you're watching a movie like I was watching that movie about Benghazi, and those street scenes, and were, but here lately, I'm not going to lie, I really worry about our country. I think that what we have done is allowed, through apathy and through the Democrats not being able to find their butts with both hands and a flashlight, ran a candidate that could not be elected, and created a situation where I'm not sure we'll be able to use the ATM in 9 months. I'm not sure banks will hold in 2 years. I'm not sure that elections will come off as smoothly and easily as they have in the past. We created that. And if that doesn't keep you up at night and you think everything's all right, then you're one of those people that really believes in high fences. High fences, automatic weapons, and lots of penicillin. And that's not a world that we as Americans should have to live in. That's not a world we should have. So that keeps me up at night. Also, lasagna. In the movies I watch, the movies I watch, I think 12 Angry Men.
That's a great film.
I think To Kill a Mockingbird was a great movie. I think Gregory Peck and Moby Dick.
Yeah, and
was a great book.
Horton Foote did the screenplay.
Yeah. And modern movies not so much, because I don't want to see like a 14-headed shark, eat a 19-headed octopus and then have Vin Diesel and who's that big old guy that played at Miami? The Rock. Yeah. Have The Rock come in and save us. I don't know if I want to be saved by somebody I couldn't have a conversation about like a book with. So I'm, you know what I mean? Although I guess if they're saving your behind, it doesn't matter what kind of books they're reading. But bring on Vin. But I love old movies. There's that scene in Lawrence of Arabia where he's running through the desert by himself, posing with the dagger. And that's just beautiful. So I'm a geezer. I'm a geezer.
I love those movies too.
You're a geezer too.
I am. I'm a geezer.
Are you more of a geezer or less than a geezer of me?
Oh, I'm more of a geezer.
When were you born?
Oh, February 59. So
February 59. So you were
6 months or so.
6 months my senior.
Exactly. Yep. Any more questions? We got to wrap up. Yeah. Go ahead.
You just talked about what keeps you up at night, what gives you hope.
Yeah, what gives you hope, Rick?
Well, I'm a natural pessimist.
That's where your hope lies.
Right. I am you have to understand my people. You know, I'm not trying to be picturesque. My people, my people do, and I'm not proud of this, I'm really not, but it has made for good books. My people do time. From my brother back to every man in our family line. When those Huguenots came over from France. And on my daddy's side, it was Creek Indian and Nordics. And
Vikings, yeah.
And they were, they've all been fighters, and they've all been reprobates, and they've all been gamblers, and they take the path of least resistance and accept in their own futures. And then they will take the hard path, and they'll drink themselves to death. My grandfather died of cirrhosis, and my daddy died of cirrhosis. My other grandfather died of cirrhosis. They all drank themselves to death. So, I don't have to pretend to live in some dark and gloomy place to be a Southern writer. A lot of Southern writers just love to be picturesque, and it's hard to be picturesque. I think, first off, they need to get rid of that damn seersucker suit. You know what I mean? So when you ask for hope, I have to fall back on we don't have a coat of arms. There is no saber hanging over our mantle. Our people fought in the Army of Northern Georgia. Two of them were quite well known as snipers. We have no qualms about shooting somebody from a tree. But I really believe this, and my people believe, that there is no situation. We should remember that now in this dark time and frightening time. That there is no situation so dire, so bleak, so harsh, so hopeless, that we, being the people we are, people who gave our fingers, hands, and arms to cotton mills, who went down into holes to dig coal. There's no situation so awful, soul-killing, so without cheer, that we, being of our blood, with perseverance and our talents and our cunning and our backbone, cannot make worse.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on. We'll end right there. Thank y'all.